thinking we've given a good amount of time here for the stragglers to come in. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started here today.
If you're able to turn on your camera, we would love to be able to see you. If you're driving or in a position where you can't, we understand, but it would be helpful for when we go into the breakout rooms, just so we aren't talking to blank screens.
That's right. Well, guys, we're going to start out as we always do. If you've been here enough, you know what we're about to say. So we want to start off with wins of this week. What good things have been going on in your business? And the nature of what we do, the reason we start with wins is because we know that as we're looking at things that are needing improvement in the business, we can get in this negative mindset of everything is wrong, everything is broken. So we want to counterbalance that by starting out with what good things are going on. Tell us what's happening.
So I just got done recycling a second round through my Dream 100 list. I have a company right now. The first call I made, 3 projects within 1 week.
Woo!
Yep.
Kevin.
That is incredible. And Kevin, I would love for you to, just because we do have other people who are doing the Dream 100 right now, like it didn't take just reaching out once. It didn't,
No.
like you said, you recycled through that list. Yeah. Can you
So,
set expectations for
yeah,
everybody else of what that looks
Yeah,
like?
come on here, Kevin.
I have like 7 different companies in the past, 7 different types of companies who have hired me in the past. Each one of them, I've created a list that has about 40 in each. Ran through a 12-week cycle for all of them. Then now I went back to the ones who didn't answer, and luckily the first call that I made had wound up being something fruitful. So it took me roughly around 13, 14 weeks of constantly pounding the pavement. And to be honest with you, hell, you get busy a little bit, then you take a little break. So really it's about almost like 20 weeks.
Right. But look at how much fruit came from that activity.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible. I really appreciate you sharing that, Kevin, and hopefully encouraging some others who are in the middle of it. Anybody else have a win that they want to share?
I just got another Google lead right before this call. So that was
woo!
Wow, come
on.
And it's not by accident, because he's at like 70 Google reviews, and 2 weeks ago he was at like 10.
Talk about tenacious, getting after it.
What a
yes,
stud.
That's somebody who wants to win right there, doing what he needs to do to get it done.
Come on, guys.
Anybody else have a win that they want to share?
We had one in the chat here. Safe. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm gonna go with safe. I have a gut feeling it's safe. Well, I figured it was pretty safe to say that. So
nice. I knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming.
Great. Wanted to share, we were featured in a local magazine as a local hidden gem. Exciting. Nice.
Woo.
Hidden gem for now. I'll clap to that for now.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very exposed gem. Very, very, very known.
That's right. Yeah, they do incredible work. I get to work with Safe and his wife Sarah, and they do very immaculate remodels. So yeah, they definitely deserve that. I think. Oh, dang it, Nicole, do you remember the name of the magazine? Was it AF Savoy?
When you told me, I don't think you were confident of what it was. So
that's true. Maybe Safe, you can clarify in the chat there. But yeah, very cool. Very cool win. Anyone else before we get rolling?
We need at least 3 more wins before we move on.
And we will wait for them.
So we have never advertised HVAC really. We just do a little bit for some existing customers, and plumbing has been slow because everybody's out of town when it's 115 degrees here. But we've done 4 AC installs in the last 7 or 8 days. So it's pretty solid, little unexpected.
Dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
That is incredible. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about last week. You know, when the phone's not ringing, what do you do? You know, is there something else in your wheelhouse that you're easily able to perform and offer that service during a slower season for your other? And so really love hearing that win. All right. Well, Bryce, I think unless anybody has a quick win.
Going once and twice. Okay. So I've got a picture here of, I honestly just a really, I wish I lived in Florida when I look at this picture, because there's I don't know if that's just a cloud or a mountain in the background, and then all these beautiful trees and this nice cobblestone driveway, beautiful house. But Southwest Florida Air Quality is a company that I work with, and it's intentional that I put this win here because it's what we're going to talk about today. But they are doing incredibly well as a business. They're an HVAC company in Florida, and the owners, Mike and Laura, do a phenomenal job of tracking. They do consistent numbers for their team and making sure that they're meeting the goals that they've set, and they communicate those goals. They just do it all really well. And for those of you that know what Profit First is, if we've talked to you about that before, they're running Profit First, and actually they are beating their Profit First percentages. There's the target percentages at the top that we're trying to get to for most people. They're actually on top of those goals, meaning that they're allocating more to profit and to owner's comp than is, you know, given, because they're able to allocate less for operating expenses. They've got a really, really good handle, and that is due to their incredible tracking. So this year, they're already on track to far surpass what they did last year, and it's August at the moment. And I think that they are at or maybe a month away from their revenue from last year. So they're doing incredibly well. Big shout out to them. Okay. So I teased it a little bit, but this is what we're talking about today. If you are a business owner, which all of you are, so everyone's included in this, you have got to keep a scoreboard for your business. If we're not keeping score, what are we playing the game for? If we're just trying to keep up with bills and expenses, we're not really enjoying having a business. We have a glorified job. So what we're going to talk about today gets into how do we get out of that mindset and where do we go from here. So some of you may or may not know who this man is. His name's Tillman Fertitta, sorry. He's the owner of the Houston Rockets, Landry's Incorporated, and he's got an NBC show, $1 Billion Buyer. Basically a guy with a lot of money that has made himself successful. And he's got this quote that I'm going to pull. And he says, I ask people what they do in sales, how much money they made last year, what their cost of sales is, and they don't even know. If you don't know your numbers, you are going out of business. I don't care how good your product is. Replace product with service if you're a service business. If you don't know your numbers, you're going out of business. This is so important. The big time players in the game, you may have heard this either on shows or in books or wherever you get some inside podcasts. Big time players, big time business owners, they say things like, oh, it's a numbers game. But what does that mean? How is that even possible? What are those numbers, right? These are all natural questions. So let's get into the details and actually talk about that. I like this quote a lot too. I'm a quotes guy. I like one-liners, but Leonardo da Vinci, of all people, he said that realize everything connects to everything else. There are ways for us to understand what's going on in the business by tracking particular numbers. We don't have to track, you know, every single minute detail. That can become pretty irrelevant pretty fast. But if we track specific areas, we're going to get insight into what's going on in the business. So the main idea with tracking, I'm making the case for doing this. I'm one to make it where you say, yes, yes, yes. How do I do this? So the very first thing is we want to operate our business based on facts, not based on our feelings. Tracking numbers is really the only way that we can know what's working and what's not working, right? How close are we to reaching our goals? What's going on in our sales process? Where should we spend more money in marketing or advertising decisions? So we want to operate by fact versus feelings. Most of us are operating by feelings. or just checking one number, which is our bank balance. Doing bank balance accounting, and that affects all the rest of our business. How much money do I have today? There's so much more for you to know about your business than just how much money's in your bank account. I promise you, there is fruit for you outside of this. So, facts versus feeling. The second thing is, let's play the numbers game. These big shots talk about it being a numbers game. How can we do that at our level of business, right? If we know, as a small example, I'll talk about this more in a minute, but if we know that we need 10 leads in order to close 5 jobs, that's a number that we can find by tracking. But if we do the math on that, we work it backwards. I want to close 15 jobs this month. Well, that means what? If it takes 5 leads to close 10 jobs, then I need 30 leads to close those 15 jobs that are my goal. You can work it backwards. That's how it's a numbers game. If you know that on average you get, you're spending $400 a month on local services. If you increase your budget to $1,200 a month, would that get you to your goal? Does that triple your lead flow? Well, we only know that by tracking. It's not always going to work that way, but you can know your lead source tracking week after week and find out how you can play that numbers game. Third thing, educated training and feedback. You can talk to your team with knowledge and clarity about not just, hey guys, we need to do better. Hey, we're slacking. It seems like there's just not enough money this month, but I know you guys have been working hard, but what's going on? Oh, we can know with certainty what's going on. Where do we need to make this adjustment? Are we not closing well? Are we on average making less per job? Are we taking too long on jobs? Right? We can give educated feedback to our team, which leads to educated training. And this is related, but still the same thing. We identify issues quickly and more in advance. You can see the indicators as things kind of work their way down, what's happening. Is anybody, well, maybe I'll say this, but I'm thinking about fitness tracking apps, right? A lot of us will do that either with fitness or with even food and dieting. Those things are not tracking every single thing about food. They're just tracking some key things that can help us get to the root of the problem. They're more of a clue finder than a fact finder. And that's why we want to think about, how do we track numbers in our business? So what do you have to do as a business owner to make tracking worthwhile, to make this not just busy work or paperwork? One, you got to keep a consistent time to either create and to review these numbers. If you actually look at your numbers and don't say, I can't afford the time to look at the numbers, or this is the paperwork side of the business. I'm not happy with that side of it. You cannot afford to not do this. You will always struggle if you don't make time to review your business by the numbers. That is always going to be true. I've mentioned Southwest Florida air quality before. He is probably more particular than most people will be. And that's okay. You don't have to be on his level, but he has found a way that really works well for him. And that's this kind of sub point that I have here. Decide between using manual spreadsheets or a CRM. Some people will use a combination. If you have a CRM that keeps all this stuff digitally, then run a report and keep that in a manual spreadsheet that has kind of your overview stuff. Nicole, sounds like you want to interject.
Yes, because this is literally the most common objection that I tend to get. And I see other coaches nodding, so I think loans, where it's like, I don't want to do this duplicate entry. That's why I have a CRM. That information's in that CRM. And the first question I'm going to ask is, do you look at it? How easy is it to access? Do you have to go through all these different filters to get that information? And typically the answers are, I don't look at it, or I don't know how to find it. I just know it's there. And here's how we feel on it is like, as long as you are tracking and you're looking at your numbers, I don't care if you're scratching your numbers into a wall. I don't care, as long as you are doing it and you're looking at them. But if the CRM is too cumbersome, if you're having to go through all these filters, if it's not something that you can pull up and immediately know your data points, immediately know your leads and where they're at, then you probably need a spreadsheet too. And the duplicate entry is not going to take you that long, especially if you have an office person who's going to be helping you do that stuff too. And so don't extra, even though it is an extra step, is really going to save you a lot of time in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge, Nicole. And I think, Derek, he just walked away because I think he knew I was going to say something. We talked about this yesterday in our meeting together, that he has a CRM that is tracking where his leads are coming from. We're in this kind of inflection point of maybe hiring somebody else. Oh, he's back now. He may interject in here. But at that kind of inflection point where, okay, are we ready to hire another person? We just hired somebody, but do we have enough leads coming in? How can we manipulate our lead sources to get what we need in terms of volume to keep a guy staffed? He's been tracking in the CRM. There's a spot where you can put in where the lead comes from, but now we have to figure out, okay, well, how do we get the report that tells us how many leads are coming from what source on a regular basis? Where's the statistics here? So if you just keep data and you never look at it, yes, it is busy work. But if that data leads to action, if it's something that can tell you something about your business and you're going to do something because of what it says, then that's worthwhile. It is not simply paperwork or busy work. And that's the second thing here. Lean into that discomfort. If you say, hey, I'm not a numbers person, I hate paperwork, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to challenge you here to give yourself a little bit of tough love. Do you want to forever be an employee or a busy man, or do you want to be a business owner and know what's going on in the business, manage it from the top? In order to do so, you have to be able to look at data, figures, statistics, and make insights and choices based on those things. So lean into that discomfort. It is uncomfortable. It is outside of the trader skill that you started this business with, but getting into that next phase of growth is necessary to be able to keep track. Third thing, I feel really too busy. I'm stressed out already. I don't have time to carve this out. That's what this is for, is to alleviate that stress that you're feeling, right? If this is something that you just do and it doesn't make any sense to you and it's frustrating or annoying, that's probably because it doesn't mean anything to you. You're not making insights from it. Adapt what you track and even potentially how you track it to give you peace about what stresses you. If the sales process sucks or you feel like there's not enough leads or there's just never enough money, well, let's make something that can help you track that so that you have knowledge, not just feelings. That facts versus feelings thing is coming back up again. All right, adapt it so that it gives you peace about what stresses you. And then you've already heard me say this a bunch already, but this is not just busy work. Actually, it is busy work if it's irrelevant information. If you're just tracking stuff to track stuff, it has to lead to action. There's a story. My girlfriend's uncle is a military man, been doing it his whole career. Told me this story one time about how he had taken charge of this base and was being given this weekly report that they had on the slideshow every week. And in his first 2 weeks there, he said, "Hey, what's this report about?" And his employees said, "Oh, well, it's just a report that we make every week." He said, "Okay, well, what does it tell us?" We don't really know. We were just told to create this report. Okay, let's stop doing that. What? We can stop making this report every week? Yeah, we're going to stop doing that. Until somebody tells us that they need it for something, then we're going to stop doing it. So they didn't hear anything for 6 months. They stopped doing it. And then 6 months later, somebody said, "Hey, by the way, where's this report?" He did the same thing. Yeah, we stopped making that report because nobody knew what it was for. And there was no purpose in putting it together. And they said, no, it's for something. He said, "Okay, what's it for?" "Well, we don't know either. We don't really use those numbers." Okay, so we're not doing this anymore. This is a waste of time and effort. It's irrelevant. It's busy work. So they stopped doing it. That's a maybe extreme example, but I say that and I take the time to say that because yes, if you feel like it is busy work, you are probably right. If it doesn't mean something to you, doesn't lead to action, it is an irrelevant report. You shouldn't keep track of it anymore. So I'll get off of my soapbox portion here and we'll start getting into the details here. What should I track? everything. But here are the basics. So obviously everything is a joke, sort of. You can track big areas in your business by getting key metrics. These are these boiled down aspects that give an indication of broader issues. I said this earlier and I'll say it again. Think more, when you think about KPIs, key performance indicators, think more about this as a clue finder than an answer finder, right? It's not going to tell you exactly. Just looking at a spreadsheet of numbers or a CRM report of numbers isn't going to tell you something unless you're thinking critically about it to say, okay, what does this tell me? What does this mean? What does this lead me to understand about what's going on in this area, that area, or another? A few spots that we should track would be things like weekly revenue, leads, how many appointments are we doing? How many closes are we having? Because these lead to figures like what is our average per tech? How many opportunities do we need to close a certain amount of deals? What's our conversion ratio? What's our closing ratio? And that is how we play the game by the numbers I was talking about earlier. I'm going to get into a specific spreadsheet here in a minute, make it much more focused down. Right now, I'm just talking about the broad subject. So don't be overwhelmed, please. Stay with me as we talk through some of this stuff. I'm giving you some ideas because some people may be farther in already tracking stuff and some people may be square one, and that's just fine. Okay, individual leads. Where are our leads at in the sales process? For a lot of us here, we're a general contractor, remodeler type. Your sales process is a couple of days, potentially a couple of weeks. No matter who you are, it is going to happen to you that you're going to forget about somebody. Your brain is not a steel trap. You're going to forget. Someone's going to text you out of the blue and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm leaving money on the table. Don't do this anymore. Track where your leads are at. If you want to grow and have a sales team, you can make a spreadsheet that leads to this mutual accountability, and you don't have to have, 5 or 15 or 30 phone calls between your team members to say, hey, where are we at with this lead? What's going on here? Just track where they are on a spreadsheet that says, Joe Bob has received a quote and his next sales appointment with us is this date. Track where they are. And we've got tools to help on all of this. We've talked about them in some of our other calls. You can check them out. Ask your coach with this list if you see something in particular that you're like, man, this is low-hanging fruit. I need to get on this quickly. Let's do it. And we'll talk about it in the breakout rooms too. Technician performance is a little bit more detailed, but if we're looking at revenue on a technician basis for a plumbing company, are our technicians on a weekly basis producing $5,500 a week at minimum? Or are we way below that? Or are we above that? Do we have a goal for where they're at? How many estimates do they give? How many jobs are they closing? Do they have a bunch of callbacks? Because that is a cash flow killer. And we've talked about that in other calls as well. Income and expenses. This is one of the first things that I will track with somebody because it's the easiest and most simple. You do it on a monthly basis where you just get a finger on the pulse of the business. How much money came in? How much money came out? What can we kind of expect? You get 2 years worth of data. You identify trends. Hey, we're typically going to get lower in February. So rather than try to spend a bunch of marketing dollars in February to counterbalance that, we just know it's going to be slow. So let's regroup and use that as a training time. There's different ways to interpret the data, but keeping at least a spreadsheet that has all together, monthly in, monthly out, how much do I make on a monthly basis on average? And yes, you'll get paid for some jobs that were closed in another month, or you get installments and it may look a little bit weird. Don't worry about all those details. It comes out in the wash because you're always going to be closing new jobs that then pay you a month later or something like that, right? So just start somewhere. And then cash flow. Where are my margins? Where's my money going on a job basis? How much are we in the green when we actually finish the job based on or compared to what we estimated? How do we come out? Okay, this is where I'm going to hone in for just a few minutes on a specific tracker. I think that we do have a lot of tools that we can give you to track. I want to spend time in this one because I feel like it's maybe the most comprehensive and a little bit simple enough and actionable that we can all benefit from using this. So Again, we've got this master tracking spreadsheet that has 5 tabs on it. These are the main things that you should probably get into tracking at some point or another. If you have a CRM, this still very much applies to you because this is a consolidation place. You can run your monthly reports through your CRM, but then put that data into a spot where you can see weeks and months at a time all at once, where you actually know what data you're putting in there. I'm not going to talk about this tab or the other ones. I'm just going to talk about this one right here, which is the weekly marketing tallies. Is this big enough that everyone can kind of see it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I
So
can kind of see it.
nice. Just kind of. So up at the top, it's kind of broken up into 3 sections here. Up at the top are those 3 questions. These are 3 of probably the biggest, most consistent questions you have in your business. 1, how are we doing financially and with collecting? 2, how effective is our marketing? What's working? And then 3, how effective is our sales process? So on the left-hand side, we'll start here. It is just money in, money out, money owed. On a weekly basis, each of these lines can be a weekly period, but you can track your new sales if you want to keep track of that there, or I oftentimes will actually hide this column and just track how much money did we make that week and how much is our accounts receivable. Accounts receivable, for those that are curious, is how much money is owed to us on jobs we've already completed but hasn't been paid yet. Money that we are owed that hasn't been paid yet. And this money that hit the bank is actually money that went into the bank account, not just what you sold. If we're doing this week to week, we're not going to be caught off guard. We're not going to be surprised. If we see, you know, we made 5,000 this week, or sorry, 500, 5,000, we made 8,000, and then we made 1,200, and then we made 1,300. That by itself just looks like, oh my gosh, we're making terrible sales. But if we're tracking accounts receivable, maybe we had $500 that was owed to us here, and then we had 250, they made a payment. And then here we have 3,500 that's in accounts receivable. Okay, sales is not off. We're just not collecting. There's an issue here. If that accounts receivable keeps growing and that money that hit the bank keeps shrinking, that's what's going on. So these kind of things are what we can learn from that left-hand side, that how are we doing financially with collecting?
I'll throw out there that sometimes it's like, if it's much more difficult to track one metric over the other, you know, it's better to track just something at the very least. If you're like, well, hit the bank, that's tedious. Well, it's still important, but if you're not going to do it and not track anything at all, well, then just track what you know you're going to stick with. At the very least, you know,
You can always add more later. You know, I always tell people that, like, hey, of course we want to use all of these tabs. You guys see these tabs on the bottom here. We're going to want to use all of them, but let's just start with one, you know, and let's start with what's most important, and let's start with what's easy to gather. But then we're getting habit of tracking, we can start adding more. You know, if you bite off more than you can chew, what's probably going to happen is you're going to end up not doing it at all because you're going to get overwhelmed. And so start small. You can always add more later.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's true as well. I'll say that from what earlier, right? Adapt it to what stresses you. If you just want to use the middle part of this spreadsheet that I'm talking through, or just want to use the left-hand side, like Jonathan said, start somewhere. You don't have to use all parts of it to still benefit from it, but just use what benefits you. So that's the left-hand side. The middle piece, again, on a weekly basis, how effective is our marketing? When we consider the effectiveness of marketing, we're just talking about how consistent and what is the quantity of lead flow. The quality comes later. That's in the sales process. For now, we're just tracking how many leads are we getting from where. And that's this middle section. It is a tally sheet. All you do is change what's up here at the top to be your lead sources. If you don't know your lead sources, where you commonly get leads from, that's also a great thing for you to know and understand about your business. And even just putting this together will be a benefit to you. But put your lead sources up at the top, and then on a weekly basis, okay, we got 5 phone calls from organic leads on Google. We are also advertising on local services, and we got 8 leads from there. We got somebody that messaged us on Facebook, and then we had 2 referrals, 2 repeat customers, and then somebody that came from a yard sign or saw a truck or whatever. Can be whatever. Make the categories at the top fit for your business, but We're just tracking how many leads came from where to see how effective our marketing is. And then you can see after week after week after week, you'll see patterns. Hey, on average, we get 8 calls a week from Google. So then if we start to get 2, 3 calls a week for 3 weeks in a row, okay, something's changed. Let's look at that now, right? Otherwise, we're just saying, it feels like there's less calls than there usually are this time of year, or than there has been the past couple of weeks. So that's the middle section, just a tally sheet of how many leads are coming from where. And then the right-hand side, how effective is our sales process? Of these leads, it looks like we got 19 leads that came in over the course of this fake week that I made up. We've turned 12 of those into a job. So then our conversion ratio is 63%. Week after week after week, you find the average of this, and then you know, okay, on average, we're needing 6 leads to close 10 jobs. So, like I talked about earlier, playing the numbers game, how do we reverse engineer that to get the goals that we want? Do we need to improve our closing ratio? If our conversion ratio is just 20%, then yeah, we need some work. Let's improve the closing ratio. We need less leads, or with the same amount of leads, we can get much more work if we effectively work on our sales process. That's the main crux of the sales process piece. And then there's this extra column here that I always like to include. And actually, Robert was the first one that told me about doing this. With hiring, if we're tracking how many calls we're losing simply because we can't get to them soon enough, then we know pretty clearly when we're ready to hire somebody else. If the main or the only reason we're not able to win that job is because we couldn't get them on the schedule quick enough, if we have eight leads a week that's happening to you, or 4, depending on your type of business, whatever that needs to be, can you fill a person's schedule with those leads that you're not able to get to because you're just not able to get to them soon enough? Great. We don't have to hem and haw about, are we ready to hire somebody? We know with clarity that we're ready to hire. Cool. And then tracking number of Google reviews is always important because we know that affects your organic growth. It affects your AdWords, it affects your website, it affects your local services because Google's all interconnected. So that's why that's included here. And then the last side of this is tracking objections. Again, the sales process, we need to know not just that people are closing, but why are they not closing? Why are they saying no? If we see a trend, we can adjust to that trend. And that's what we're looking for, is trends. 2-3 weeks worth of data that says this thing is happening consistently. What can we do about it? We can duplicate the things that are going well, and we can eradicate the things that are not going well. Cool. I know that there's probably going to be some questions about this. We got plenty of time in the breakout rooms to go into this in more detail, either this tool specifically or just tools in general, tracking in general. Where are you at right now? What's been keeping you from this? So with that said, I will hand it over to Mr. Jonathan Rude to put us in those breakout rooms.
And Kevin, I saw your question in the chat. You should probably already have this in your tracking document. It's probably just a different tab. But if you don't see it, just email your coach and we'll get it added for you. But all of our clients have that leading tracking document on the top. James, I just saw you pick up your pup. Oh my goodness, what a handsome fella. Anytime I see a dog or a cat, I'm immediately distracted. Like nothing else matters to me except
True.
the animal.
Squirrel?
Yeah.
Nicole, more so compassion based. Nicole this week adopted another dog because she saw it running across the street.
I'm not adopting it. Don't say that.
I
Very
mean,
adamant that I'm not keeping it. I'm fostering.
to add to her.
Hey, are we
4 other
gonna do
pets,
this
5 other
breakout
pets.
rooms thing or?
Tell us where to go, Rudy.